Thank you for coming, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Dwayne Callender, and I am the co-chair of the Alliance of Cambridge Tenants, which is one of the 8 member organizations that make up the Cambridge Progressive Electoral Collective, the Electoral Collaboration, We call it CPEC. Thank you for joining us today for our first CPEC forum. We will start with a land acknowledgement. The land we are gathered on, what is now called Cambridge, Massachusetts, is an ancestral and ongoing home of the Massachusetts people. We honor their past, present, and emerging leadership. Yes, they still exist. The Massapee, Wanapagone members of the large Massachusetts people are federally recognized with a reservation in Mashpee and Taunton and over 3,000 enrolled citizens. This is stolen land, acknowledging that it is not a ritual, it is a grounding. CPEC was created this year by some of the Cambridge leader progressive organizations coming together. It includes 8 local members organizations to align organizations. Member groups are the Alliance of Cambridge Tenants, the Black Response Cambridge, Cambridge Democratic Socialists of America, Cambridge Housing Affordable Organizers, Cambridge Housing Justice Coalition, Cambridge Resident Alliance, Our Resolution, Cambridge and Social Solidarity Squad. Aligned organizations include the Cambridge Education Association and the Cambridge Retired Educators United. In this November, CPEC will work to evaluate the progressive issues that matter most to the Cambridge voters, share the positions that candidates take on those issues, and encourage a strong voter turnout, which, while each member of the aligned organizations will continue to operate independently and make its own decisions. They are united in shared commitment to pool resources and organize for meaningful change in the leadership and priority of our local government. Thank God. Questions? Number 1.
No, my turn.
Okay. Go ahead. I told you I'm nervous.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Greeley, and I am with the Cambridge Retired Educators United. I'm a member of the Cambridge Solidarity Squad and a former Cambridge teacher and parent of 2 graduates from the Cambridge Public Schools. Dwayne and I are going to be moderating today's forum, and I wanted to just briefly review the overall process. All candidates will be asked the same question from CPEC, and responses will be limited to 1 minute. Whoa. So, the first person to answer a question for the first question will be the last to answer. We'll work our way down and bring the microphone around. There will be a signal that I don't know what it sounds like yet, but it will go off, and that we ask that you stop because there are so many wonderful candidates here tonight, this afternoon. We don't want to go into other people's time. It's a very, I know you get that. So please respect the signal so other candidates have a chance to share. Also, to the audience, please hold your applause, even for me. You don't have to applaud. And we're trusting people will be respectful. We're sharing a lot of different ideas here tonight. We will also be considering questions from the audience. If you would like to ask a question of the candidate, we have cards and pens were available at the desk, and some people will be going around during the talk time, and you can write your question and then we hand it up to the facilitators at the end after we get through some of the CPET questions. Okay, so are we ready?
Yeah, are we ready?
I'm going to ad-lib just one thing here and say it is so wonderful to have so many people who care so deeply about our public schools. And I'm excited to hear your ideas, as I'm sure everyone is. And just thank you for being willing to put your lives on the line for our kids. All right,
Great job.
Dwayne, your turn.
All right. I'm back. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the first question. I'm going to say it as clear as possible. In working with people in the community, Cambridge Public Schools or other institutes, can you give an example of a situation in which you played a leadership role? What have you done to bring people together? 1 minute.
Hi, so I'm David Weinstein. I do want to thank CPAC, and I want to thank Dwayne and Kathy for moderating, and everybody for being here. And I agree, it's really wonderful to have not only so many people willing to run, showing their passion for our schools, but everybody here, the organization sponsoring this, and other people who are doing so much work. There have been a lot of ways in which I've worked with the community to make things happen. The thing that I'm really still in the middle of working on is developing our cradle-to-career system of supports, and that is something that is not a one-person thing to do. That is something that I've been advocating for a number of years. For a number of years, and we are now in our first stage of implementing in Cambridge. And what that's involved is bringing together school department and city folks to really meet and do this planning together, because if we're going to make sure that every child in Cambridge has an adult navigator who ensures they have the supports and the opportunities that will allow them to thrive and follow their passions and interests and talents and have their needs met, we can't do that in isolation. In fact, part of what I think is our challenge in Cambridge is we have so many. Is that
Time.
That's time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Next.
Lily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Havstead. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hosting. So I am a parent at Graham Parks, and I serve on our school council. And I formed last year our budget subcommittee. I had been pushing for this behind the scenes for some time, several months at least. And I finally was able to bring it to a vote at our school council this past early spring. So this was early 2025. And what that enabled us to do was create a team of concerned caregivers and educators to really dig into how are we spending our discretionary funds at the school level, and how can we better allocate these funds to student needs. This took a lot of work of building trust with educators in the school to be willing to come together and ask tough questions about how we're spending money, and parents as well. And there's a lot more work to do on that front. It's about building trust. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Doobie, and thank you for this question, and thank you for hosting us tonight. My leadership in the community has involved working with young people, students at the high school, as well as community organizations like Transition House and YWCA. I've been on the Cambridge Women's Commission for the past 3 years, the parent co-chair of the Baldwin School Council, and I've done a lot of work on consent education at the high school with the high school athletics department, teachers and coaches there, as well as working on the 11th grade health curriculum. I've also founded 2 no-cost youth leadership programs in collaboration with folks at the YWCA, Transition House, the Women's Commission, the Cambridge Public Library, and our schools. And it's exciting to think about the way that that type of leadership that extends from young people across the community and connects to our schools can continue to expand so that we can promote social justice values as well as youth leadership here in the city.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Jess Getz. I have 2 kids in the upper school at Darby Vassal Upper School in 7th and 8th grade. An example of my leadership within that school was when we got there, there was no such thing as a school council. We had some meetings, but nobody was elected as they're supposed to be. And so I contacted people I knew from other schools, and I collected the materials that they had, and we ran elections at, then Vassal Lane and now Darby Vassal. And now we have a democratically elected school council.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Arjun Jacomar. Last year, I served as co-chair of the Graham Park School Council, which Lily mentioned a moment ago. As some of you may know, the previous year, our school community had been in some turmoil. You may have read about it in the papers. And I've been a critic, but I'm also a firm believer that if you're going to complain, you should try to be part of the solution. So last year, I served as co-chair of our school council, and along with people like Lily and Robin Harris and our school administration, I worked really hard to bring people together and to ensure diversity and equity of voice, and to work with Lily on forming subcommittees to move our school community forward and make it more democratic. As Lily pointed out, we got a lot done. Not all the credit is mine by a long shot, nor is anybody waving a mission accomplished flag. But I do believe that we moved forward as a school community, and that is in part due to working to build bridges. And that, the work that Lily and I did had something to do with that.
Thank you for your answer.
Good evening, Caroline Hunter. I'm going back to a time when I was an educator at Cambridge Ridge and Latin, and I was the leader of the Concerned Black Staff Organization, which met with the administrator to improve working conditions for black staff, but also developed an affinity group where we tried to support black students, ran a scholarship program for black students that provided an access to college. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annie Coburn. I am a parent of a former Kennedy Longfellow student who recently graduated from 5th grade. I want to make a very strong commitment and a very strong play for the fact that my leadership, any leadership that I have had, has been based on other people who are in this audience. My leadership isn't mine. My leadership is ours. And the people who wrote newsletters about Kennedy Longfellow, that was a team effort, a group-edited effort, and together we worked to raise awareness about the Kennedy Longfellow transition. We worked to make sure that there was as equitable a transition as possible for all students and for all teachers. All teachers at Kennedy who were at Kennedy Longfellow are still employed in this district if they wanted to be. And I am incredibly proud of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My example is from when I joined the school committee. I joined school committee in January 2020, a couple of months before COVID changed our lives. As head of the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, I held conversations with experts to help us advise on how to reopen our schools. But it wasn't just the experts. I also invited educators, I invited families, and people had different perspectives. We were all afraid. And so the discussions were really hard. They were really difficult. And it took me a couple of goes, but eventually I learned to manage those conversations in such a way that people were able to present their concerns and at the same time move forward so we could make decisions that allowed us to open our schools earlier than most of the districts for our youngest kids and our kids with highest needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alex Bowers. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome.
One of the things that I've done relatively recently is I have twin daughters who went, they're currently sophomores, but when they were entering CRLS, I was very frustrated in finding, it was very difficult for me to find data about, what they should enroll in, what the rules were. And so I had started collecting notes when they were in 8th grade, and then when they entered 9th grade, along with Tina Liu and Principal Gately Gahant of CRLS, we pulled together, happened to have an exhibit, the Sierra Last Family Guidebook, where we collected as much information as we could about the high school to help students sign up for the correct classes, know how things worked. And it's been successful enough that we're going to be able to do another printing this fall. So congratulations to everyone who worked on that.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jia Lee. I was originally from Malaysia. So I played several roles, and one of the roles that I'm playing is board member for several nonprofit organizations. And in one of the recent projects that we are doing involving an online 5-year philosophy course providing free for anyone, involving volunteers and people we engage locally and globally. Everyone from different places have different culture and values. They don't come along with, they insist of their own perspective, and as a member, I talk to each of them, understanding their concerns and needs, and bring them together to have an open dialogue conversation to talk about and finding a common ground. And that's that kind of, even though I may not be the team leader, that's the kind of thing I've been playing in all the roadmap, in all the projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is LaQueen Battle. I want to thank CPEC for having us today, as well as, of course, for the safety and guidance of all the candidates here today. As you know, the city of Cambridge is a very international city. People know Cambridge all around the world, from the schools and institutions, as well as the community, from Harvard University to MIT. And it's a little sad that sometimes we can't take care of our own community, especially what's happening right now at Volante Library. I had to go before the courthouse as well as the school committee and the city council in order to get some kind of feedback of the closure of Volante Library, which is right next door all throughout summer. So as of this Wednesday, October the 1st, Volante will be reopening according to CPL's website, so I'm very happy about that. As well as, of course, I've had the opportunity to volunteer at various different functions with the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, and the Chicago Marathon, and I think that opportunity is available to students of low background and income like myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luisa de Paula Santos. I worked as a paraprofessional at the Fletcher Maynard Academy for the last 2 years, and I've been a union organizer for over 7 years and with experience in coalition building. At the FMA, I bring that organizer perspective, brought it to my work as a CEA member, and I would bring that to the school committee as well. I was active on the contract action team at CEA, and most of the para involvement in the contract campaign came from FMA because of my leadership and the leadership of others there. I was active on the e-board at the CEA as well, and also active in the MTA. I'm still an MTA member. I work in Somerville Public Schools now. So I have really strong connections to the MTA and know and follow the trends of their school policy recommendations. So I would be able to bring that to the school committee. I've also been active in the Solidarity Squad and have relationships with
That's
other
time. Thank
organizations. Thank you.
You're busy. Woo. So the next question will take, I think we're gonna start at that end and work our way back up. Is that the way we're gonna do it? Okay, so question number 2. There is widespread agreement that the controlled choice system is not accomplishing the original goals of representing the diversity of Cambridge in each school while maintaining parent choice. What are your concrete ideas about what should happen to make controlled choice work for everyone, or what should it be replaced by that will accomplish these goals? Go ahead.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I believe that Cambridge should be investing in every school according to its needs to ensure that every school is a school of choice. I think part of that includes ensuring that there's diversity at every school, including by carrying out administrator evaluations using diversity and belonging of all students, as well as improving the recruitment of a diversity of students as a metric of their performance as administrators. I believe in the controlled choice process is a pretty difficult system for people to navigate if you don't have the access to information and cultural capital to be able to do that. So I believe in working with the CEA to have multilingual community-based school navigators to provide equitable guidance on how to understand the controlled choice system and make better use of it.
Thank you for your time.
Unfortunately, a lot of parents rely on the vouchers in order for their students to attend schools here, not only in Cambridge, but across the United States. And so with the school choice system here in Cambridge, parents sometimes are limited on the lottery system that it places upon students as well as their families. So I think there needs to be some kind of like she was saying, a metric system to rely upon. How do I decide on my family budget versus what the possibility of reaching a school that is limitable for me and my child? So I think there has to be a lot of choices made. Unfortunately, like myself, I do have my son. I'm a non-custodial mother, but my son, he's raised in a public school in Texas. My aunt raised him as well as he has the opportunity to attend public school. But a lot of students also face those same realities. So I think there has to be a
That's your
metric system
time.
based upon that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the first thing is actually engaging all stakeholders within each school community, talking to them, understanding, looking at the data qualitatively and quantitatively, and also getting the feedback and to see what actual needs and resources we can provide and what they need, and making each school in the district unique, so that there's no better school or not so good school. So when there's a unique school for every school is unique, then parents will choose according to their preferences in terms of the interest, not in terms of better or worse school. That's the first part. And the second part is it's also time to reevaluate the controlled choice system. It has not been very transparent of the rules and the point system. So we need to engage all stakeholders within this Cambridge City and reevaluate and see what we want to do with the system.
Thank you. Next.
I think the first thing that needs to happen is we need to engage more with families to find out why they're choosing certain schools over other schools, where they're getting their information, if it's word of mouth or if it's official information from the district. It would also be good to examine past data to get precise numbers about why people are choosing certain schools over others. Is it the program? Is it the location? What is drawing them to certain schools? And also figure out the reasons why people from different backgrounds are choosing certain schools. Another thing that is sort of outside the district but impacts it is also ask why families are choosing not to go into CPSD at all. They're choosing private, charter, or parochial schools, because to know why they're choosing those schools and knowing that families may choose to transfer, I think would also help the district refine how the schools are designed to best serve families.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you for the question. As people might know, controlled choice as we know it is not one policy. It's a compilation of various policies ranging from the lottery system to the socioeconomic social balancing in our schools. So yes, one thing that we need to do is review every single of those policies and see what's working, what's not working. But overall, for controlled choice to work, as someone else said, all schools need to be schools of choice. Otherwise, we start having problems in those underchosen schools. So the main thing that we need to do as school committee is make sure that on a yearly basis, we're looking at the enrollment figures, identify when a school starts trending down and not being chosen, and address that school. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as Member Rojas said, it's a collection of policies. And also, just as an FYI, controlled choice is required to be evaluated this year as part of the Kennedy Longfellow and CEA contract. So, to find out why and where and how, first I think that we need to look at mandatory assignments. There were 9, but where are those kids going? We also need to publish enrollment data more transparently. That needs to include preschool data as well. I think that we should have an opt-out question on lottery forms that asks, why did you choose this school? And also asks, how long do you anticipate your kids' commute to be? Because transportation is hugely part of transportation in many ways is the price that we pay for controlled choice, so that actually has to be part of this conversation. I think that we need to ensure that there's enough space in all schools to allow folks coming in post-lottery after the lottery. Lots of folks don't know that there is a lottery.
Oh, time. Thank you.
Thank you. The controlled choice plan should undergo an in-depth review and analysis using the historical data of the performance not only of students but of its schools as well. Any changes would have to be based on the result of qualitative and quantitative data, surveys, as well as roundtable discussions with staff and community support groups, feedback sessions and surveys with constituent groups, caregivers, and students. We should also review our HR practices to uncover the structural barriers to increasing the diversity of staff as well as we look to increase the diversity of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. First, we are not rigorously enforcing balancing of high-need students. As long as we do not do that, there will be winners and losers on test scores for whatever value you place there and in control choice. There are certain things we can do beyond that in the immediate term, like closing loopholes in the transfer system and providing universal after-school for pre-K students. But I also think that when 9 of 11 schools have standardized curricula, and shockingly the 2 that don't, Tobin and Amigos, are extremely popular in control choice in the lottery, we need to think more about what makes the other 9 schools special individually. To do that, we need to enable teacher autonomy, and we need to return to developing individualized school identities, whether that's project-based learning, whether it's STEM, whether it's arts or music. Otherwise, the only distinguishing factors in control choice are proximity and start time. And West Cambridge kids will go to well-resourced West Cambridge schools is exactly the problem that control choice was, in theory, designed to control.
Thank you.
I agree with Arjun. But I have a slightly different way of seeing it, and that I think that controlled choice is such a wonderful idea, and it falls apart in the implementation. I think that the extent to which some families are willing to game the system to get the transfers that they want is a detriment to the entire community. And so I think that a big part of improving controlled choice is making sure that we get good community buy-in. You know, I think it was mentioned previously that it's difficult even to navigate the what of the system, but we almost never talk about the why of the system. I also think that we need to evaluate the outcomes, like what is the difference between how schools are allotted on lottery day versus what our school populations look like by the end of the school year. And I think also I just want to hold Arjun's point up about each school needing to have their own individual identity and autonomy so that they are all schools of choice.
Thank you.
I'm really excited by the part of this question that asks what would our current controlled choice policy be replaced by, because I think we are at a point where controlled choice is not working. We've known that for some time, and it's part of a larger equity vision that we really need to define and get behind. So yes, concrete steps do include rich community stakeholder involvement processes, family engagement processes, and talking to educators about what excites them in the classroom. And then we actually need to offer choices that are exciting for every single family, whether that's project-based learning, STEAM, outdoor learning, screen-free schools, whatever we come up with, so that we're actually serving the students in our community as public education is meant to do. I also think people have spoken today about a need for transparency, thinking about what it actually means to have a choice program that is exemplifies what our values are as a city. And so thinking deeply about what our schools should look like, feel like, and be like, rather than just having a process in place to do that.
Time.
I also welcome this question and so many great answers. And I think I am with Caitlin here, and I want to start thinking about what might we replace the current controlled choice policy with. But Caroline Hunter gave us a great sort of starting point for thinking about that process. I want to say a bit more about what we can be doing right now.
right now, starting this year, we can move to a zero-based budgeting process, which means we start the budget from scratch and we make a budget that prioritizes the very, very real staffing needs at all of our schools, regardless of how expensive it's going to be. We need to invest in the staffing to meet student needs at every single one of our schools. So let's prioritize that first in creating a budget from the bottom up. And let's listen to our educators who are telling us that they need more support in the classroom.
Thank you for that answer.
I support the controlled choice goal to create diverse, academically rigorous schools with equal access to educational resources. And we do need a holistic review of how controlled choice is working in practice, and as has been noted, that's going to be happening this year. And that review should also include a review of how we communicate about controlled choice, how we support children and families at points of entry into our schools, when a transfer is requested. Our diversity of approaches and communities at each school is a strength. However, opportunity and support and outcomes must not vary between schools. I can't recommend specific reforms before that comprehensive review, but I will be focused on looking at the data generated by that review and over many years of implementation to identify any trends or unintended consequences so we can address them, to ensure every school is supporting every kid well, and so every family is confident whatever school their child attends in Cambridge, be it their first choice or not, they'll grow and thrive. And I'll advocate for these questions and concerns to be a key committee focus this term, including public meetings of the full community and real meaningful community engagement, because we can't really move forward on this without that.
Time. Thank you. Thank you all for the answers. We're going to go to question 3. I think we're doing good with time. So we're going to start with question 3, and we're going to go, if you were elected to the school committee this term, what specific steps would you propose for including the voices of teachers and caregivers in policy decisions? What role should CEA play in decision making?
I support a non-voting role for the CEA on this school. I also support a non-voting role for a CPAC member on this school committee. I think those voices have not been heard, and they should be. I ideally would really like there to be a union for caregivers as well. I don't see one. I think it should be the school committee. Maybe it's not. I would like very much for all school councils to be strengthened, more visible, to have translators at all school councils. I'd like to have those school councils to discuss policy that is coming up and have their voices and their recommendations pushed onto the school committee themselves so they could actually see what's going on. These people have a lot of skin in the game. What do they think?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My experience professionally is working with cooperatives across the country and also internationally. In co-ops, the members are the workers, the clients, or the residents of the co-op. They sit on the board, they choose management, which in turn they have to work with as workers or residents or consumers. So I support something like that, of having a non-voting member of the CEA in the school committee. Another thing that we can do is do roundtables. Through roundtables, it's a way for the school committee to actually have conversations with people beyond the administration. You can invite educators to present on the subjects to be discussed. And the other one is before COVID, which I only had 2 months, it was a practice that the CA president would join the school committee in the back room for dinner before the meeting started. That stopped during COVID because of obviously obvious reasons, but since then that has not restarted, and something I would do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also a very big proponent of actively making the school councils feed information up from the individual schools into the school committee, which I believe is one of the primary reasons they were created by the state. Traditionally, or at least I've served on 3 councils, and a lot of the effectiveness depends on the relationship between the principal, the elected members of the school council, the educators, and the community members that all join together to form the council. I would definitely strengthen them. I would make it an official, information flow up into the committees. And regarding the role of the CEA, I am not sure about having a non-voting member on the committee, because I don't know how many more entities you'd need to invite to make it fair to join the committee.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I really emphasize is partnership for all stakeholders in the community. So obviously, family engagement, outreaching to all communities, all minority communities, providing them the translation, removing the language barrier, getting them involved, getting them engage them for regular and casual, regular, formal and informal meetings. And also, of course, for teachers as well, of course, with VA, CEA, but also there are teachers who are not very actively involved in CEA. We want to hear their voice as well. So, and also community members. And we should be making decisions together, not for them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So I do agree with Lily that there should be adequate staff in the classrooms. It's ridiculous that there's still a shortage of teachers as well as paraprofessionals in the city of Cambridge as well as across the United States. So definitely increasing more paraprofessionals and more teachers, staffs here in the city of Cambridge. As well as, of course, I do believe that CEA does have a very pivotal role in whatever the school committee decides. There's also a student government, 2 student government officials in the school committee at this moment. I do agree that there needs to be more high school students that need to have voice their opinions about what's going on with the school committee. And as well as, of course, I do believe that teachers as well as parents should decide on the curriculum and the agenda set forth for their students to learn. So that's what I do believe. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your answer.
Hi, my platform focuses on participatory and democratic governance and school policy. I also have a Black background in that through my urban planning degree. I believe in conducting visioning activities and events like placemaking groups do in order to collect information from a broad range of community members. I believe in meeting people where they are, door knocking and doing constituent services to understand what people's issues are, having more transparency and report backs of all school committee decisions and how they were made so that the community can be informed and have that information inform their advocacy, and giving the CEA time to get educator input on decisions, not making decisions with the CEA just by going to the president like has been done in the past, but really allowing the CEA time to engage the membership to understand their perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things I think we can do on the school committee level to increase the role of teachers and caregivers in the policy decision is to have more roundtables that provide a chance for teachers and caregivers to give input into their experiences. In terms of the role of the CEA for all of our unions, we have labor relations committees, which is a chance for labor and management to get together to try to resolve those issues before they get to the school committee. We need to look at the structures that maybe are inhibiting this as we approach our contract year. I think it's about, in terms of involving parents, I supported and was a member of the ad hoc committee started by Member Weinstein to look at and involve the role of the school councils more. And we had several sessions where we brought school council members together to look at policies and structures that we need to improve. We're also looking at the timeline.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Ms. Hunter.
So this question articulates the reason I decided to run. I think the people who are the closest to students, which are caregivers and educators, should be closer to decision making. I support non-voting membership for the CEA on the school committee. I think we should invite more educators to present as part of the agenda at school committee meetings and to treat those educators as the professional experts that they are. But also, I think that if you want to hear from school communities and educators, you have to go where they are. The people who will, for example, show up for public comment at a school committee meeting, I know this, I've done it, they're a self-selecting group. So if you want to really engage with the community on a very deep level, and that includes educators as well as caregivers. You have to go visit schools and school communities. You have to sit in on class, to talk to caregivers, talk to staff when their bosses aren't around, to police them. I think only if you do sort of the harder and deeper work of community engagement are you going to get a representative sample of community sentiment.
Thanks.
Like so many people here have said, I wholeheartedly support CEA representation at the school committee table. I, in fact, would be thrilled for that to be the first resolution I could write as a school committee member. And I could model it off of the one that was just voted on to give the student school committee members the right to a non-binding vote at meetings. In addition to writing a resolution, I think we need to organize the meetings better so that the presentations we get from the superintendent and the district align with the policies that the school committee members are actually discussing at the meeting. And then when we do that, those presentations need to involve the voices of the people who are in our schools every day.
Thank you. Well said.
I think that as leaders, we need to invoke a nothing about me without me framework. Sorry. And we also need to be moving towards more of a community schools, open door schools model. Because we absolutely need to have educators at the table when we're making policy decisions. They're the ones who are in the classroom seeing how those policies are playing out, and they're the ones with the on-the-ground data that can tell us what we actually need to be doing in real time with our kids. We can do that by revising school committee rules. We can look at Chapter 2, Sections 5 and 15 to amend those rules, and we absolutely should be doing that. We should have a CEA non-voting member seat at school committee meetings. We can also add a rotating educator voice section to our agendas. We can go into schools. We can revise the rule that says educators must go through the superintendent in order to communicate with school committee, that we can have direct communication from educators to school committee. And we can also say, we can pilot public data dashboards to show what we're doing.
Oh, time. Thank you.
So many good ideas from colleagues here. I want to add to the wonderful ideas people have shared. In addition to also supporting having a non-voting CEA member at the table at meetings, I would like to see us really embrace meetings as working meetings where there's real dialogue and deliberation about policies. I don't know where the dialogue and deliberation are really happening right now because we're not seeing it at school committee meetings. It seems as though decisions are made before the committee comes to the table. And I would like to change that culture so that our meetings are working meetings where public comment is reimagined so that community members who show up are able to engage meaningfully along with the educators who are represented at the table with a non-binding voting seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
I championed the passage of those updated school council policies and established the special subcommittee with Vice Chair Hunter that she mentioned so that educators and caregivers from our schools could share needs and priorities. I'll continue to hold our district leadership accountable for meaningfully supporting school level family engagement and robust school improvement plans and school council elections. I hope I'm not inadvertently breaking a rule by directly talking with teachers, but I do that. But I also support a non-voting role for CEA representatives. I brought the motion together with the mayor last week to resume non-binding votes by student school committee members, and I actively and proactively invite caregivers, educators, students to present and participate in subcommittees. For example, formally inviting CPAC to conversations that are not specifically about special education. There are so many ways that we need to make sure that we are not missing things that we don't know that we are missing. And I've collaborated with and supported students to strengthen our menstrual equity policy, our hate and bias related incident policy, and to institutionalize the consent education program that Caitlin has done so much great work on in athletics with our students.
Good answer. We're just going to switch roles here a little bit. Kathy's going to come to the podium.
I'm going to pass that to Caroline. Okay. People are...
I didn't even see the board.
All right. First, we had a question from the audience, which was, what is CPAC? Just to be clear, it is the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. So it's SEPAC. All right. And you guys are doing great. So now that the MCAS has been removed as a graduation requirement, what do you think you can do as a school committee member to advocate for alternative assessments to MCAS at all grade levels, assessments that recognize students with different learning styles, experiences, and abilities, and that allow teacher autonomy? Would you join educators and others in working to completely remove MCAS from the Cambridge Public Schools? Why or why not? In 1 minute.
Thank you. I think we're, as a state, we're moving to new recommendations about project-based learning, about community service, around leadership. The state is beginning to work on that framework. Cambridge can take the leadership in this, but it's going to require lots of dedicated training in terms of developing the kind of expertise that's going to be needed to monitor these projects. Many years ago at our high school, and we do it in the senior year, we had some project-based learning activities that exposed students to the community. I would be interested in adding, as we have advocated many times, for internships for students, for community service requirements, for leadership-based activities that involve students with their community in developing hands-on projects, and involving them more in active leadership in terms of civic responsibility. I don't think we are ready to remove MCAS because it is an assessment tool. When I wrote the Concerned Black staff report around the Tale of Two Cities, we used our district information to determine that students were not performing
Sorry,
equally.
Caroline.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, look, I don't think that our city at this moment can do a great deal to overturn federal testing requirements. I know federal government doesn't think that Congress's laws apply to them, but they do think they apply to us. That said, we know enough about the MCAS to know that we know that the primary drivers of standardized test scores, such as the MCAS, are income, parental income, and parental educational attainment. And I don't think that MCAS scores tell us a great deal beyond that. So I would support any and all efforts to implement more culturally responsive assessment tools. And as a school committee member, I think that the first thing we can commit to doing while we still have the MCAS is understanding what it tells us, what it does not tell us, and treating it as a data point that is useful for that only. And not pretending that it teaches us more than how far your parents went in school and how much money.
Hi. I really welcome this question because it's an opportunity to express something that has been happening for me as I run for school committee, and that is the acknowledgement that what I personally feel might not be what the school committee should and would do. I have no love for the MCAS. I don't like it as a parent. I don't like it as a student. I do not think it's a good idea. I do not think it shows the things that people say it shows. That said, I'm not sure that we could get wide community buy-in into the idea of getting rid of the MCAS, in which case I think that we need to be responsible about how we use MCAS data. And we need to move away from sweeping statements that are made on proportional data, proportions of a continuous score that has been chopped into 4 categories. I also think when we are looking at it, we need to look at disaggregated data and look at particular student groups and the cross-sections between those groups, and also follow growth data.
Thanks.
I think that standardized testing is harmful for a number of reasons, and I'm happy to share my thinking about all of them right now. Number one, I think there's a huge opportunity cost when we're doing test prep in the classroom. That means we're not doing different types of engaging learning where students are honored, excited, different ways of knowing are celebrated and reflected back in the classroom. I also think that we're selecting curriculum that help kids prepare for standardized tests, which means we're not doing place-based, culturally responsive curriculum like project-based learning. And I also think that when we're asking kids to take a test, we're also omitting different types of assessment methods like exhibitions and student-led conferences and other ways to engage in the community rather than relying on a certain type of test. I also think that the the data point that we get from MCAS is one way of showing one type of learning, but it also doesn't reflect the values that we want to see in our schools, which are raising engaged citizens.
Time. Thank you, Caitlin.
So I'm in the boat of feeling that MCAS is a very harmful test. I am a historian by training, and I have studied quite a bit of the history of the MCAS. And I will share that history with anyone that's curious at another time. But based on that history and based on the fact that the exam has not done what it was promised to do, which was close achievement gaps, it's time we try new things. And we are falling behind as a district on that front. Around the state, there are districts all over the state that have joined the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Assessment. This consortium has been around for, I don't actually know how many years, but I learned about it 3 years ago. I do project-based learning in my own teaching, and I was looking into this issue. And that consortium has grown while we have not joined it. We need to join that consortium.
Well, that's a great segue. I was going to say we should explore the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Educational Assessment. Had some conversations some of us have with folks from that group, their approach to build support for alternative assessments. I supported the elimination of MCAS as a graduation requirement, yet we do need to dedicate time to administering it, so we should use the data well while being cognizant of its limitations. Using it in the way it's best used, not to teach to the test, but rather to alert us if there are trends in our schools that are concerning or promising, or places within CPS where we see positive or negative outliers, so we can address issues, build on strengths. And we shouldn't let the tail wag the dog. There are state standards, there are Cambridge goals, there's educator expertise. That should be leading us in what we strive for in the classroom, not what can be assessed in varying degrees by MCAS, including areas that aren't touched by MCAS. There's a lot of value that can't be measured there. As a former art educator and as well as English teacher, I know how important the arts are and have championed the arts in our schools and found additional state funding for our middle school theater programs, for example. But learning and growth in the arts is not assessed by MCAS, nor is experiential learning, though it has strong positive outcomes for many students. So that should guide
David.
our development of assessments.
Thank you. I'm going to announce people's names when you have the mic, because evidently people in the back can't read your table cards. So I think it is going to Louisa. Just first names.
Hi. Standardized tests are boring. Students cannot learn, and behaviors escalate when they're bored. The solution is to build classrooms that engage all forms of intelligence. I support reducing the amounts of our budget that goes to for-profit assessments and curricula, first of all. I believe in funding the supports for true differentiation. This means smaller class sizes and more co-teachers, so educators have the time to discover students' unique strengths. Shifting from remediation to enrichment. Too often, students who struggle in one area are pulled out for basic skills drills, missing the engaging grade-level content that could spark their motivation. I support project-based learning and arts-integrated learning, like others have mentioned. And I support training educators in strength-based approaches. We must move beyond seeing IEPs and other assessments as punitive documents for compliance and train our staff to use these as blueprints for unlocking genius, as well as giving staff the space to suggest creative forms of assessment.
Thank you, Louisa. And LaQueen.
Hi, yes, my name is LaQueen Battle. I was an ISS tutor teacher at Newton ISD at Franklin Elementary School, and as well as I was a participant in the Boys and Girls programs all of my school education life. I do believe that students here in Cambridge ISD need the services with student counselors, the nurses, the teachers, the special education teachers need to help them achieve their goals. I'm very thankful for CPEC, as well as for the rest of the audience to continuing to support the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as myself dealing with the disability. I do believe students are able to succeed with their educational goals despite whatever testing levels that they need, especially in these tough economic times that we're going through with Trump. But again, I do believe that students have the opportunity to succeed, especially with the student services that are available to them. Unfortunately, with Cambridge Latin, the testing scores are not up to par, and it should be better than that. So thank you.
Thank you, LaQueen. Judging.
So yes, for your record, I am against MCAS or standardized tests, but there are people out there in the district who still support that. So first of all, we need to get all stakeholders on board, revisit our vision of excellent education, excellent academic performance, which is to agree that we need to move away from test-driven methodology and assessments. So that means we need to explore other meaningful assessments to really look at each individual student to make sure they have accessible to that content and measure their progress instead of comparing them, labeling them with a score or comparing them with other students, so that is more a fair thing. And also we need to train staff, teachers, to be able to deliver that kind of approach and assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Alex.
I completely agree that there needs to be a different way to assess students. Currently, the district uses something called iReady, both in, I believe, elementary and upper schools, and it's a computerized program where kids are taught things, and the computer system basically makes things more difficult as kids do well, and will reinforce concepts if they are struggling. And I think having that kind of real-time data feedback is very important, because it's not that you want to pinpoint, in third grade or eighth grade when the MCATs, I believe, are given to elementary and upper schools. It's just one point in time. I think that assessments have to be continuous. Education has to be adjusted to each child, so by the time they graduate, they have a solid education and can go on to pursue whatever they desire.
Thank you, Alex. Jose Luis?
Yes, thank you. So as other members of this panel have said, we definitely need to have Cambridge join the consortium of innovative educational assessment. Districts like Boston and Somerville and Revere are part of that, and they've been basically showing that there are other ways to assess districts. And basically, what I understand, and thanks to members of people in the audience who invited people from the consortium to teach us about how they work, is one is they focus on assessing classrooms with teacher-oriented performance tasks, and also expanding assessments of schools with holistic frameworks. And then the other one is that for anyone to join that consortium, they need to have the support of the union and the administration. They need to commit to join the group, to be able to join.
Thank you, Jose Luis. And this is Anne.
So I also voted to remove MCAS as the grad requirement. I feel it's a punitive measure that people with, for example, disabilities have a much harder time actually passing. That's not appropriate. That's not fair. However, I would not yet fully support removing MCAS unless there is an already in place system that rolled out more thoroughly. I also think that many people they conflate the MCAS with the value judgment of both the school and the student. I think that it's important to think about this data as only useful if you disaggregate it. You need to be able to look at how different groups are doing over time, how students are, it's a diagnostic tool for inequity within the system, and it should be used only to that extent.
Thank you, Anne. All right, I'm going to let Dwayne decide where he wants to land the microphone. We can start with David again. All right, this question. Everybody got a chance, right? Okay. We're trying to mix it up a little bit so you don't feel. All right. There have been a number of occasions at which CPSD hasn't been able to accommodate speakers of other languages, including at a recent school committee meeting. What steps would you take to better include voices of caregivers who speak different languages in overall district communication and school events and decision-making?
So I'm David. I find that deeply frustrating, to say the least, that we've fallen short at times on that. There are steps we've taken and that I've been strongly in support of, like the use of the Parent Square suite of apps and communication tools, because it can support translation, and we've prioritized the languages that are most used in Cambridge initially to make sure that those are well supported with that app. But I really do believe that in our in signing up for public comment, for one thing, we should have an ability to indicate, will you need translation or interpretation? We do have a lot of professionals within CPS and within our network who speak different languages, and we have our family liaisons who connect with certain, like the Amharic community, for example. So we have those resources there, and there are phone interpretation services that we could use at meetings and have ready if somebody is there and decides to sign up last minute for public comment without alerting us in advance.
Thank you, David. Lily?
I agree that these changes need to happen and happen quickly at the school committee because, as David's acknowledged, we have the resources, we have the capacity. It's a matter of putting them to use. I would also add that we can be thinking about getting creative with enlisting community caregivers, community members, and local advocacy organizations that work with our immigrant communities and non-English speaking families to create more of a kind of an infrastructure of translators and interpreters at the school level. We could be using school improvement plans to help pay for this, because to do this ethically, we would need to provide stipends to the families and perhaps even students who are giving their time to help translate and interpret at various school functions, most especially our school council meetings. I think this is a really nice idea. Some may say it's not best practice, but I think it's a really, really lovely idea for us to seriously consider as a way of relying on the expertise of our multilingual community and bringing them into
Thank you,
the work.
Lily. Caitlin?
Thank you. I think language justice is a huge issue in our city and in our schools, and we absolutely need to be making sure that we're not perpetuating dominant culture ways of being, especially with young people. I think hiring translators, compensating community members and family members, hiring multilingual teachers, and also creating some more wraparound services with the Language Justice Department in the city are some ways that we can go in terms of thinking about what it actually means to be inclusive. I think that in general, this is one symptom of a larger issue, which is the inaccessibility and status quo of how school committee and the district has been operating, and we need to look at this as well as other ways that people feel do not feel a sense of belonging, and think about what it is that we can do to cultivate access and have a school committee and a district that truly reflects the community members that are in it, and language justice is one of many areas that we need to focus on.
Thank you, Caitlin. Jess?
Yes. So this highlights something that I have thought a lot as a parent over the last 9 years, and that is the idea that equity is in the operations of how we are doing things. We talk a lot about educational equity, which is important, but if parents can't even go to the website and get a very simple piece of information, then their child is never going to have the same access that other children have. And to that point, I think, as David noted, we have a lot of resources. We could do translation. So let's get the operations on board and do translation. The other thing I think about when I think about this is using plain English in our communications. So the Parent Square translation is only going to work if we put solid plain English into it. Otherwise, translating to other languages is just as confusing as some of the messages we get from the district in English. When I was at Graham and Parks, our family liaison was excellent about everything we put out to the community had to be run through an app that would tell us the grade reading level.
Thank you, Jess. And Arjun?
Thanks. First, I was at that school committee meeting remotely, and I do want to appreciate Member Rojas, Member Rachel, and others who did try to accommodate those speakers. I know it didn't work, but we appreciate you did your level best. David's right. This is not a hard issue to fix. You just have to want to fix it. It just never occurred to us that this was something we could do, which, you know, that's a problem, but it's something that can be resolved. You know, for communications more broadly, I know this is something I'm stealing from Tina Liu, but when you're communicating to English learners or families who don't speak English, video actually often really helps families. It's easier for automated translation, so on and so forth. They do this better at some schools than others. I think Rock does a good job of it, as I understand it. And that's something we should be willing to lean into across the district if that's what really helps families. Jess pointed out this, and it's really true. For soliciting and engaging feedback from multilingual families, like Grambling Park does a pretty good job of this because we have a large English learner population, and the administration knows it, and they work to engage with them. But we have, for example, a dedicated family liaison wholly devoted to serving English learner families. So it's a matter of resources as well.
Caroline.
Thank you. We do have the feature, we do translate into the major languages in Cambridge and provide translators at all public events. One of the things we can certainly add to the feature, I agree with Member Weinstein that when you sign up, you can request a translator. There's also a logistical situation in terms of how advanced a person would have to do for us to have a person physically at the meeting, and I do agree that phone translator services would be helpful. Our contracts this year for safety, paras, clerks, and many of our staff include a stipend for those people who act as translators on the spot for people who enter in our buildings. And I think that has added a respect for the skills of our staff and the ability for them to serve in this capacity. So the more services we can provide, both care of video and in-person at meetings, would be very important.
Thank you, Caroline. Anne?
So I think it'd be great if we could make it easier to book translators for written and spoken translations, even if
And could you speak into the mic a little bit more?
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, I think it'd be great if we could make it easier to book translators through the Family Engagement Office as well for events like this. And do we have ASL translators available? I'd like that. I'd love David Weinstein's idea of flagging translator need when registering for public comment. I think that we should hire biliterate and bilingual family liaisons for all schools. Written as well as spoken language is really important. I think Jess's point is great. Plain, accessible, clear language is something that I am very fond of writing. I think AI, this might be an appropriate use of AI in terms of translation in order to make communication more accessible if all human methods have not already been explored. And then finally, yesterday, Santos suggested parents who speak other languages.
Time up. Thank you, Anne and Jose Luis.
Yes, thank you. I won't go into the public comment sign up, et cetera. That all makes sense. I would just add two things. One thing that we could do is hold meetings in communities that predominantly speak other languages. And so by holding meetings in those settings, we can more readily prepare for those conversations in different languages. The other one is that the same thing that we're talking about here, I think someone mentioned that this also happens in school councils. I served in my school council for 8+ years. It was Amigos. All the meetings were done in English, even though it was a bilingual school. So for 1 year, we actually piloted having the meetings in Spanish and having the English speakers having to have the meeting translated to them. They didn't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose Luis and Alex.
I think that having translators on request at different types of events is vital. To Anne's point, I think that this is an area where AI can really, at least in the written word, at least give us a baseline, perhaps to have communications reviewed by a native speaker to make sure that there's accuracy when AI decides to translate certain things. I'd also like to step back for a moment, though, and in terms of making information available to families, you have to clean up the website. You have to make things easier. It is almost impossible to find information when you're looking for something specific on the website. Some data isn't updated, some is obsolete, and some is wrong. And I think that actually is a step you have to take even before you get to translating large amounts of data that the district provides.
Thank you, Alex. Jing.
Yes, so when we talk about communication, often the district has been practicing is informing the community. That's part of the communication, but that's not the entire communication. It should be dialogue, two-way dialogue. And so I'm focusing on making the environment very welcoming to non-native speakers, the communities, to feel free to come and present your concern, your questions, and say something nice or not so, or critical. That is something that we need to enforce at the beginning, the first thing. And secondly, to make them know that there are translators there and anytime, which means we need to have people available all the time, not just on social events. And thirdly, in terms of smaller platform that we are using, Parent Square, they are not so user-friendly even for native speakers. So we need to explore other means, and by talking to different communities, they have better suggestions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judging. La Queen.
Yes, my name is LaQueen Battle. I do agree with Arjun that Cambridge, Massachusetts, Boston is one of the biggest Haitian populations. I'm a CNA, so I should know. And it should not even be an argument that the city of Cambridge CPSD does not have an allotment of an ESL teachers, more ESL adequate staff to handle Spanish-speaking, Haitian-speaking, Muslim-speaking, whatever kind of language it is to accommodate the influence of cultures in this city. This city, the city of Cambridge, is very diverse. You have communities that not just come here for the primary education, but they also come here for the schools, for the career education, as well as for job and workforce development. So it should not even be a question about what language translation or availability for that. Thank you.
Thank you, La Queen. And Luisa.
I think conditions at Kalo, for example, deteriorated, and the school was closed in part because of a lack of language justice in our district. Yet the community there, I know, engaged each other, so I would look to Kalo for best practices on multilingual engagement. I would work on identifying and engaging community leaders that can help to make meetings culturally responsive, to meet people where they are, to get feedback, and to share information with people to demystify the process of requesting translation and interpretation. I would work to make interpretation services available at all meetings, and making translated meeting minutes widely and proactively available. And someone, Lily, mentioned stipends for multilingual family engagement. In Somerville Public Schools, in the paraprofessional contract, they actually provide a stipend to paraprofessionals who can speak a language other than English to do family engagement.
Thank you, Luisa. All right. Our next question is, what are the steps that the district should take to support our undocumented students and families during the current surge of ICE abductions? For example, what do you think is an appropriate attendance policy in these circumstances? Caroline.
Thank you. Currently, our activities to support undocumented students and their families involves coordination with the city through the mayor's office and all the city agencies that provide services for immigrant communities, the Housing Authority, the legal department, translation services, and specific ethnic group service organizations. As a school department, we've participated in training for all frontline individuals in terms of what our policy is, not to allow the entrance of any ICE officials. If they are presented with a warrant, we have another procedure that allows the staff in the legal department to engage with them. All of the people who are frontline people who let people into our buildings have received this training. We just recently had another meeting because the other thing we've done is we've advertised the Know Your Rights information to our families. We cannot legally provide that training on our property.
Thank you, Caroline. Anne?
So I'd like us to continue to maintain our sanctuary city status as Member Hunter just discussed. But I'd like it to go further. It needs to go further. We have to act like a sanctuary. Absences due to ICE should be excused. Multilingual differentiation of the CKLA curriculum has to happen now. We must have robust wraparound social services and mental health services to support our students who are dealing with this presence in their lives, both them and their friends. And we need a full MTSS rollout that's multi-tiered systems of support. I think that's where we should start.
Thank you, Anne. Jose Luis.
Yes, thank you for the question. I just want to highlight that the district is already working on this. Can we do better? Yes. But I do want to point out that the district's providing advice not just to the parents on an individual basis, they're also providing advice and training to the staff at the individual schools so they can act if something like that happens. And at the same time, they're doing so in such a way that they're not attracting attention to the district and ICE, because we don't want them to just think, okay, let's try them out because they're preparing, right? So we're preparing quietly and hoping that that's a good thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose Luis and Alex.
Definitely, Cambridge should be preparing for more interventions by ICE. I can't speak to what they're already preparing because it's being done rather quietly. But I do think that the district already has some, based partly on what happened during COVID, we have some experience in what it takes to provide effective remote learning, coming down to providing families with Wi-Fi or machines, computers if they need them. But there is also a system where students who are unable to come to school due to long-term medical issues are provided a certain level of support. And if we can build on that kind of model, which I can assume has been effective, that's one way to ensure the kids get an education in these times.
Thank you, Alex. Judging?
Yes, so we definitely need to have a team or a department to assign to check in regularly with all these undocumented students and their families. But of course, the plan should not be discussed or disclosed to the public to prevent their safety. And we need to also make sure that the mental well-being, enough food, or enough other necessity things that they need are provided to them. And they need to have to know what to do if things happen, certain emergencies, whatever emergencies or eyes or whatever, they need to know who to contact within the district. And also we need to, for the academic studies, we need to have flexible alternative options for them to learn remotely and also to be supported in whatever way after discussing with each of the family. And overall, we need to build a stronger community and partnership with local organizations and nearby districts. And also, the goal is to build that trust and make them feel that they can trust and rely.
Thank you, Judging. LaQueen.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, ICE right now is happening without the family's knowledge. They don't know where the student is. They don't know where the family member is. And right now, all the website is saying is, go visit the website, go put this person's name in it, and you'll be able to locate your family member. Well, that is not always the case, especially when it happens right then and there at that particular time. So I do believe that CPSD needs to find some way to accommodate the instances. Sometimes it's the parent that's taken, and sometimes it's the student that's taken. So we need to hold some kind of community forum together as a school district to know what in emergency situations, how to fix this issue. I do agree with a lot of the candidates here on this platform. They do, completely support, having step-by-step method plan, especially when you're dealing with the federal agency government, especially right now with the Trump administration. So I completely support community forums to help with these emergency situations, which is happening to migrants all over. Thank you.
Time.
Sorry, we're just getting sorted out here. Where did we start with this question? Okay, so we'll come back to Arjun? Okay.
Hi, I'm Louisa. I support making sure that we're providing Know Your Rights training for educators and administrators on how to respond if and when ICE comes, including how not to collaborate with ICE. I support engaging with communities of privilege to do information sharing about the realities of the risk that migrant communities are facing and to build rapid response networks with them. I support circulating resources like the Luce hotline, and there's something in the question here about attendance policy. I believe that any attendance policy during this time should be coupled with restorative justice. I support wraparound services to understand family needs in order to also prevent punitive measures against people trying to protect themselves.
Thank you, Louisa. And I think we're going to Arjun.
So training on responses for school personnel is extremely important, and that training should extend to adjacent personnel like transportation, bus drivers, so on and so forth. And I agree with connecting families with relevant community resources, including wraparound services, so that they don't, to the extent possible, have to go where they're not safe or don't feel safe. I think when you think about our responses, we should also look to other cities that have been facing this problem that seem to be responding well. Los Angeles is one of them. Chicago is one of them. I think we have a lot to learn from what those cities are doing. I think also, look, I'm a lawyer. I think putting people in touch with lawyers is always the answer, or one of them. But in this time, I actually think it's important for families to know that they have resources that will represent them if they need them. To the attendance point, I do think attendance has to be relaxed. It seems cruel to me to make kids come to school if they are not going to feel safe when they're there. And I think to Alex's point, we should facilitate remote learning opportunities. I know everybody hates remote learning, but needs must.
Time. Thank you, Arjun. Jess?
So I'm really heartened to hear about the amount of training that has already been happening, and I fully understand and respect the need for that, for us not to be broadly shouting from the hilltops what our plan is to protect kids. I think that any absence that is related to your sense of safety for your family and your children should be not only excused, but also supported. When children miss too much school for other reasons, usually the family liaison ends up calling that family to figure out what's going on. So if we encounter families who need more support because they feel scared to let their kids go to school, then we can go back. We've done remote learning. We got through it. Some better than others. The other thing that I've been thinking about is we start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would really like if we started meetings with a statement of our Sanctuary City Ordinance and a statement that we as a city are here to protect the children.
Time. Thank you, Jess. Caitlin?
I want to echo an appreciation for all of the things that are currently happening in the city and the district to protect all of us, and also want to say that I think when we're thinking about students who are missing learning time and community time and connection, it's not just about excusing an absence, but thinking about what more can we do to offer care. I think there's a huge opportunity to increase and share systems of care and really come at education from that model. To that end, I think restorative justice practices in our schools are hugely important. But what else is really important is thinking about how do we raise a generation of students who are able to continue anti-bias, anti-racist ways of being, so that when they are adults and policymakers, they too are able to draw on that rich education and the experience of being activists and advocates for other people. And we need to think about what our classroom cultures and school cultures are actually doing to cultivate that mindset and that leadership.
Thank you, Caitlin. Lily?
Yeah, as usual, my colleagues here have put many wonderful ideas on the table, and also important to acknowledge what the city and district are already doing. I do believe these are genuine efforts, and let's keep going. And I think I want to actually highlight what Anne was saying about how students feel at school. This connects to what Caitlin is saying as well, and others. But let's lean into making our schools more joyful places where our kids want to be, where they feel safe. I think this has to do with how we can make some meaningful shifts in the curriculum and that we design. And as an opportunity, as Caitlin was saying, for us to really lean into our values as a community of diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion. And those words don't mean anything until we live up to them. And I know that this community wants to. So let's live up to those communities and recognize everything that our immigrant families are bringing to our schools and integrate them more. I think this is related to question 5, frankly.
Thank you, Lily. David?
As Vice Chair Hunter and Member Rojas noted, we have robust supports and procedures in place for undocumented students, preparation at every school community. We're doing outreach. And though we don't publicize it, various measures for various reasons, I'll continue to be vigilant that we're prepared to support every member of our community and everybody who chooses to become part of our community. And as I've said before, while every dollar matters, I won't agree to compromise our principles or our policies for funding. And I will also always stand in defense of and in solidarity with our trans and gender nonconforming students, as well as our black and brown students, our immigrant and refugee students, as we're talking about right now, and with all of our students in policy and in practice. Our attendance policy does involve discretion at the school level, and I think we need to make sure that that's in terms of like what's needed to excuse an absence. We have to make it clear that when students are home for reasons of concerns in this way, that they're not penalized, but also that we have resources that we're providing them so they're not falling behind, and that we continue to build our support so that they can genuinely feel safe coming to our schools. That will also involve collaboration with the city and with state elected officials.
Thank you, David. Okay. We actually had a couple of more questions that we wanted to ask, but there's also real interest from the audience, so we wanted to give you some time. So we're going to put our questions aside, and I'm going to just share that there were 15 people who submitted a question. 5 of those questions had to do with free speech issues and Palestine. 2 were curriculum questions. There were 2 racial equity of teachers, and the rest were more unique to themselves. We are going to submit those questions to the candidates, so you will get a chance to see them and respond to them. Not sure the process for sharing that out, but I'm sure they will get shared out. So I'm going to let Dwayne read the first 2 questions, and I'll take over the mic. No problem. Who wants to start?
Okay, I got 2 questions, and I read them both already, and both of them I like. So the first one, a school committee mentor, how will you make yourself available, accessible to the families in the Cambridge Public School community?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the question to the public. Just so you know how I work, if I get an email that's addressed to me directly, I respond to that email. If it's an email that's part of a chain, those are the ones that I ignore. Maybe when I reach out to me, send me an email directly, call me, and I'll reach back to you. In addition to that, I'm happy to set up time to meet people face to face. I work part-time Monday through Thursday so that I can dedicate Fridays. So Fridays, when someone wants to meet, I suggest Fridays because it's a day that I can definitely make time for them. And if that's not a good time for the person, I'm happy to meet other times during the week. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Alex. I'm Alex. I think that, setting up office hours at a certain time every week, or also replying if someone wants to speak via Zoom or via phone, just make a call, text, email. I mean, there's so many ways to get in touch with representatives. And I think that also actively asking people what they want. What are their opinions? Where do they think the school committee should focus its attention? What are their priorities? And just making sure that communication is constant and open.
This is judging. So I will have regular office hours, and I will swing by. I will have a schedule of visiting each school within the district on a schedule. And also because I am volunteering, not full-time for my nonprofit organization, I don't get paid, so I have the time to extend that volunteer service into the as a school committee. So that means I will have time, and people can always walk up to me and approach me with any questions or criticism. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is LaQueen, she, her. I am very, very much open to the community. I have been to King Open several times after school. I have passed out water bottles to the students. I have given breakfast to the teachers on the staff, as well as I'm constantly at Volante Library, so people know me after the after-school hours, as well as I do have a public phone number. I'm on Google, I'm on social media, so I'm always available, just a phone call or an email away. So this is what the approach that I would take to students as well as family members and loved ones. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Louisa. I would, like others have said, I would like to be able to offer office hours on a rotating schedule in different communities, and filling out basically seeing and understanding who does come and give comment at meetings, who has their voices heard, and try to be equitable with providing that outreach to the communities that are not represented. I also would go to the communities by understanding when block parties are happening, having a presence at those, knowing when community events are happening, try to have a table there if possible, just to make sure that I'm making myself available where people already find themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my phone number and email is also publicly accessible. I know it's not enough just to have it out there, but when people do call or email me, I respond, though I do miss some. My phone number, as I mentioned, is listed. When people call me, I speak with them. I find a time to speak. I lift up caregiver and community concerns in both public school committee meetings and informal meetings, and proactively engage. Just as some examples, because I think, again, it's not enough to sort of wait for people to call or email. You know, in my years in the committee, I've visited schools. I've invited this range of folks to participate in subcommittee meetings, connected with CPAC, with Cambridge Families of Color Coalition, with the Cambridge Advanced Learning Association, with My Brother's Keeper Cambridge, with individuals. I've been a panelist on Cobra Capstones at Cambridge Street Upper School, a community reviewer for the Upper School Civics Showcase at the State House. I've had meetings with students and conducted classroom observations this year at the upper schools as a member of the School Climate Subcommittee, and met with students on specific issues, both when they've reached out to us or when I've read something in our student newspaper and said, well, what's going on with our with this issue that we thought we had solved?
Oh, well, we can go ahead.
Lily, yeah, so I too plan to hold office hours. Louisa's point about rotating and taking office hours to communities is fantastic. I would do exactly that. And in addition, something I'm launching in the next month or so, I have a team of student workers on my campaign, and together we are going to launch next month a new series of living room conversations that I will be facilitating, and hopefully with time I will have students also helping to facilitate. Living Room Conversations is a national organization that I have gotten to know through the Education for Global Democracy spaces that I have been as an educator myself. And it's a wonderful model for coming together to facilitate conversation about school-related experiences for the purpose of listening to understand. And I think this would be really important for community members to also be listening to each other, to better understand each other.
Thank you. I think it's Carolyn.
Caitlin Doobie.
Caitlin.
So many beautiful ideas have already been shared. Yes, office hours. Yes, going out into community. And I think this question is really speaking to both a desire for more accessibility and connection, and also a reimagining of the role of not just school committee, but public leaders and public servants in general. I think that our early childhood families are a great way to connect and set the cultural norms for what it means to engage with school committee, so that's a place I'd pay a lot of attention to. I also think school committees should sort of have assigned partner schools where each school knows, like, hey, this is the school committee member I can reach out to, and that should rotate. I also think that if we're gonna really pilot community school models, we need to have school committee members in the school spaces doing things like eating lunch or having the library open or being part of the open gymnasium on the weekends. So really thinking about how do we actually get into community and provide spaces that are both attractive for families to come to and ways for us to go to families. And I think part of that is also about school counseling.
Time. That's Jess next.
This question is really what got me into this race. After watching school committee for a long time and just observing how they worked, I was curious as to whether there is any sort of documentation as to what the people we vote for owe us. What obligations do they have to us? And this is actually not codified anywhere. And so that is a big part of what started this for me, and I propose that we have a statement of expectations that is agreed upon by all school committee members, and it basically would serve as a job description, and it would detail things like the required turnaround time for responding to emails or phone calls. It would have us all hold weekly office hours and also monthly listening sessions so we can hear public comment on non-agenda items. and also school visits regularly by all school committee members.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. I agree with almost everything everybody said. Yes, we should have office hours. I will have office hours. We should respond to constituent emails and phone calls and texts within a reasonable amount of time. Yeah, we will all do that. Some people are doing that. But not to be a broken record, I think we also need to be present in school communities if you want to get a deeper, more genuine understanding of what those school communities have to tell you. There are plenty of families who may not be in a position to come to a school committee meeting or to attend my office hours on a Saturday, because I do work Fridays. But every family has a story to tell. You find that out when you knock doors and you engage with families one-on-one. And the same is true for educators. So I think that we need to be physically present in school communities, and we need to visit every school, every term, sit in on classes, talk to caregivers, talk to educators, show up at community events. We need to really commit to doing this more than just being available. We need to be proactive.
Thank you. I think it's Ms. Hunt.
Thank you. I've been present in schools for capstones, for community events, for learning walks. This is the structured time where school committee members visit with principals and educators in advance, talk about looking at growths and challenges, visit classrooms, and then provide feedback as well as written and oral feedback. I've been to, as I said, to the capstones, to this celebration of self at the Paul School. As an early school committee member, I submitted a rule that is still in governance, because I looked at the rules and all of them talked about other obligations, and I thought we need an obligation to visit schools. This was discussed in the governance subcommittee, and we got some pushback from the superintendent and from the union as to whether, when school committee members appear in schools, and I proposed that we would do it with the knowledge of the principal and the superintendent, and that this would be a non-supervisory visit, so that we could be able to talk to stakeholders, to all of the members in the unit, whether it was teachers, paraprofessionals, lunch. And that has not been passed and has received some pushback because of the potential to be supervisory. Thank you.
I think it's Annie.
I'd like to cede my time because everybody knows that I think that there should be more office hours, and I'd really like to hear what Member Hunter has to say. She has been doing this work for a long time, and I trust and believe in what she's saying.
Thank you. Say that again?
Does your format allow for individuals to question each other? Because
I believe it's going to be at the end.
It's not about ceding your time, because I would have questions for everybody on the panel as well, so.
I guess I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, we're running out of time, she said, so we're going to go on to the next question. Do you approve of the way the current school committee conducts the superintendent search indulging, the handwriting, a non-bid hiring, go ahead. A non-bid hiring.
Do you approve of the way the current school committee conducted the superintendent search, including a no-bid hiring of a search firm with no prior executive search experience? If yes, how do you justify the process? If no, how would you change the process?
Who do you want to start with?
We're going to start here. We'll come down that way. And then
I'll do it.
that way.
All right. I'm Jess. I absolutely do not support the search process. I am the publisher, the creator of a timeline that has been circling around the district of all of the meetings that were held and the decisions that were made, except that is a cell I put in my table for the many, many meetings that happened along the way, but rarely got to fill in because actually a lot of decisions for many months were not made. And that is how we ended up where we were, rushed this spring, trying to figure out what to do because we didn't get a search firm. And so instead we went with a group that could maybe do it for us for a third of the cheapest bid. It's almost so hard to talk about because it's unbelievable that it is one of the key jobs of school committee It is the leader of our school district, and it was just nothing.
Time. Thank you, Jess. Caitlin?
Hiring a superintendent is one of the most important jobs of a school committee, and if I were on school committee, I would want to have my hands all over that process. I think that it is really exciting to talk to educational leaders from across the country about their exciting ideas and ways that they want to connect with the Cambridge community. So I think to not have done a search with that point of view is a detriment to students and the community here. I think that the other piece that's felt really misaligned with our values is not respecting educators' voice and calling off the search. That's problematic for a number of reasons, but also a sort of performative community involvement process or a shrouded community involvement process also means that we're not really honoring our values in one of the most important things that we do. And I think that's a real misstep. I think whoever the superintendent is who's coming in will be able to work with the new CEA leadership and a new school committee. And I think that as we're thinking about process moving forward, it needs to be valued.
Thank you, Caitlin. Lily?
Yeah, so I'm also very, very frustrated by this search. I'm just going to name that I feel a little angry trying to talk about it. I support the CEA's call to halt this search and start over, and it's really unfortunate that we are in this position. If I'm elected, I will take the job of hiring a new superintendent extremely seriously. I'm just very, very sorry that we're in this position. But the reason I think we need to restart it is that we have further eroded public and educator trust in our school committee and our district by extension with this botched search. We need to start over, and we really need to think about what the interim superintendent role is and make sure that that role is taken seriously as well. We can have normal operations of a school district with an interim. Our current interim closed a school, so we can live with another interim for another year while we get this right.
Thank you, Lily. David?
Well, I committed to selecting our next superintendent through a comprehensive nationwide search in a process that meaningfully engages with families, caregivers, teachers, and students. So I've kept that commitment. It's a joint process, so it's not been fully in any individual's control, but I will say that as a body, the process has suffered delays, and I think that's really unfortunate, and I really tried to advocate for us to move more quickly earlier. District communication and updates have room for improvement, and I think have led to people understandingly being confused about what was happening at various points and having misunderstandings of what was actually going on. That said, we've had a comprehensive equity-aligned process that's yielded 3 strong candidates for superintendent, and we're now finally in that phase where those finalists are announced in public and people are engaging and having those opportunities to see them publicly. The public forums the other day, which are online now, there's going to be public interviews by the school committee and our opportunities as committee members to visit those districts.
Thank you, David. Where are we going, Dwayne? Okay, sure. Louisa.
Yeah, I agree with folks here. This superintendent search process, if you could call it that, I feel was pretty unethically carried out. I also agree with Lily that I feel like we had followed the CEA's recommendation to halt the process, started over. If it seems like we're going to hire David Murphy for the permanent role, we could have him on as an interim for another year and do the process right. I support launching a truly independent national search, reissuing a public RFP for a qualified, experienced executive search firm with a proven record of placing superintendents, establishing an independent community oversight board composed of educators, parents, and community leaders to co-manage the process, centering community voice from day one, hosting public accessible forums before the job is posted.
Time, Louisa.
Okay.
Thank you. La Queen?
Yes, my name is LaQueen Sheher. I do believe in a fair and a just equal process for the superintendent search. Everybody here in the audience today, as well as the public, have the opportunity to come this Tuesday to Cambridge Ridge Latin to see the finalists interview before the public about what CPS decision on the superintendent search, whether it's David Murphy or somebody else. So it's going to be happening, the finalist interviews this Tuesday. As was, of course, what superintendent does have the decisions makings with budget, curriculum, student handbook, policies, whatever it is, this person, whoever they are, should be decided wisely. So that's what I do believe. Thank you.
Thank you, LaQueen. Judging?
Yeah, I do not approve what has been done. What we should have done is to engage all stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, community members of what we want in the leadership. How are we going to do it? When are we going to do that? And in that process, that should be transparent and starting early. And if it takes longer time to find the best candidate, we should have done the interim. We should have focused on getting a good interim, and then that gives us time to look for the best candidate. And also the results of semifinalists and finalists, all that should be made together with the community for the best candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, judging. Alex?
What a question. I think that from my point of view, Superintendent Salim quit in January a few years ago, and there was a search for Superintendent Greer. When she was ultimately hired, perhaps due diligence had not been in depth enough. When it came time for her evaluations by the school committee, they were problematic, and there were delays that were sort of, what do they call it in sports? Self-inflicted? Unforced errors, thank you, Anne. Baseball. Unforced errors that led to a delay in letting her go, a lack of a plan to replace her, a financial outlay that was very generous, and I think that perhaps calling in an outside entity to guide the school committee through either choosing a superintendent or restarting the search.
Thank you, Alex.
More to say.
Jose Luis?
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm going to start by saying that whenever you have a search process where you have an internal candidate being considered, it's going to be a really hard process. It's been hard in the past, it's going to be hard in the future, it was been hard in this time. So I think that's the first lesson learned. If you're going to do a search process like this, be clear whether you're going to allow or not allow an internal candidate. The other one is we did follow best practices. Yes, we could have done better at communicating to the public on the legal reasons of why or why not we did things that we did. And then finally, I know that there's been a call to start the search again. If we did that, we would be doing more harm than good to the students in our district, and that is what's top of mind for me. Thank you.
I believe that, I resent that this process has undermined public trust. I think that the process, rather than the information gathered, should never be considered confidential. I think that the hiring search firm of this search firm was penny wise and pound foolish. I think that we should probably have gone with the higher priced search firm. I think that in terms of background checks, civil cases as well as criminal checks should be mandatory for this role. I think that it's administrative malpractice for this role, especially, that they not be considered. And I also think that we should not restart the superintendent search because we have had so much leadership churn over the past 5 years that teacher burnout is real, expectations are not met.
Thank you, Anne. Caroline?
Yes, thank you. Yes, the search for the superintendent process is controlled by the laws of the city and the state. We started off with the procurement process, which goes through the city, because the city is the hiring entity for contracts for the city. We participated in the bid process. We started off with a meeting with Mr. Kuchar, I believe it was at least 1.5 years ago. We did anti-bias training, and I will say, despite our talk about community values, some members were resistant to anti-bias training. all the activities that were conducted under the superintendent search were voted by the entire committee in public and through multiple meetings. We had community forums, community surveys, and the interesting thing is the forums and the surveys were done by 2 different organizations, included stakeholders from all categories of our city stakeholders, and the results were aligned in terms of what individuals wanted for a superintendent. That guided the superintendent process and the search process.
Time. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Arjun?
Thank you. My answer to the question is no. Had to focus on one deficiency in the interest of time. Others have pointed to the lack of community engagement, educator engagement. Let me point to what I think is sort of the original sin of this process. We had 3 competitive bids. One was from a firm, for example, that's done this work in Denver, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, has a very diverse leadership, including the CEO and the other C-suite folks. We turned them down. Why? I don't know. We think money. It was $95,000. We should be investing in a firm to do that kind of work. As Ann said, it's the specific definition of being penny wise and pound foolish. I have heard, and not just from current members, from former members as well, it's hard to do these searches, hard to get people to come to Cambridge. That's why we should invest in a real firm that knows how to do this work, that knows how to get people to come to Cambridge. With the resources we have in this district, with the budget we have, with the real challenges and opportunities of diversity that we have, this should be an attractive job, and we should be able to sell it better than we've done. At this point, though, I'm not really mad anymore. I'm sad that this is...
Thank you, Arjun.
We're told this is the best we can do.
Sorry. All right. We have one last question, and then we'll bring this to a close. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. This is a good one. Freedom of speech has been under attack. Will you defend the right of students, teachers, and staff to voice their opinions, even if they include criticism of the actions of our current government or of the actions of the current government of Israel?
So I guess we'll start here.
Okay. David.
I do believe in defending the rights of our students and our teachers to, speak their minds. There are, of course, different contexts for that. We should be, and it's the best tradition of Cambridge for our schools to develop and foster what's often called safe and brave spaces in developmentally appropriate ways. It's going to look different in an elementary school and in a high school. It's going to look different around different issues so that students who are developing their own critical thinking skills, their own perspectives, their own understanding of the world, can do that without fear that they will be shut down for expressing an idea or an opinion. And in a context where they don't feel pressure from anybody, and from the adults in particular, to take a certain stance or opinion, but really really explore. So that's something that I feel strongly about, and would continue to defend if I'm reelected to the school committee. I think we need to make sure that that's something that is always allowed.
Thank you, David. Lily.
So I'm just going to start by saying that I'm Jewish, and this conflict in Palestine is very hard to observe as a Jewish American. This is such a hard question, such a hard topic, but absolutely we must create space for our teachers, our educators, our administrators, our families to talk about any topic of concern, including the what's going on in Palestine. I think that this is part of the opportunity that we have right now. We are struggling to have civic dialogue at all levels of society, including in our schools. And so I think this is part of let's reinvigorate, let's recommit to civic education. Right now, we have educators in our schools who are given 10 minutes to squeeze in some history lessons, maybe some science. It's not enough. We need to recommit to this work so that we can do it well.
Thank you, Lily. Caitlin?
I want to echo what Lily said about thinking about this as an opportunity to really think about ways that we're teaching our students to engage in social justice standards. The learning for justice standards are extremely important, but also thinking about free speech and the ways in which people up here on this stage tonight are thinking about critiquing and sharing their thoughts and ideas about government. That's what democracy is, and freedom of speech is incredibly important there. We also need to have systems where we're teaching students how to engage in those conversations, and we need restorative justice truly embedded in our schools and classrooms so that when we cause harm, we know what repair looks like, so that every student and every individual in the community feels like a valuable member and an essential member, and that we're encouraging children to develop critical consciousness so that they're able to critique, to question, to repair, all of the skills that we need in a healthy democracy. And we absolutely need to be doing that in our curriculum and in our classroom structures so that students are learning those skills and we see those reflected in our community.
Thank you, Caitlin. Jess?
Well, yes, I would absolutely support anybody's freedom of speech. I feel like when I talk to my kids about this, I say we all have the right to speak. We do not have the right to speak without being disagreed with, which means that we need to be open to the messiness of all of this. I think that there's a lot of democracy that happens in the disagreement. And so part of that, as it relates to our schools, is making sure that we give our teachers the time and the tools, and we trust them to have age-appropriate conversations with our kids in a schedule that allows for true community building and, as you guys have said, the learning of civics so that our kids can go forth and do better.
Thank you, Jess. Arjun?
I'm a First Amendment lawyer. Sorry. I wrote my college essay on free speech on campus. I believe that this is a core principle of democracy, and it's a core principle of public education. So I believe that free speech that are in our schools needs to be zealously defended. Do we have issues with Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in our schools, in our city, in our society? We absolutely do. In the Cambridge Public Schools have universal policies that apply across the board with regard to discrimination and harmful conduct based on race, ethnicity, and or national origin. We should enforce those policies. Kids need to feel safe, protected, and loved in our schools. But we should enforce those policies equitably across the board and make sure that all our students, every single one of them, enjoys that protection.
Thank you, Arjun. Caroline?
Yes, thank you, Arjun. I think we are having an idyllic conversation because we do support free speech, but this is something adults haven't done well at all. And to burden our children without our guidance is difficult. I agree that we need to uphold the policies, and when we have these conversations, it's very difficult to establish a ground rule where everybody's respectful, so it takes a very very talented and trained and sophisticated group of adults to do this. And so we've had instances in our school where it took 6 months to a year to repair the relationships around the exercise of free speech from adults, unbridled free speech from adults. So yes, I do support free speech, and I do support the right of everyone to participate in the conversation, but I am cautioned by the training that we need to have it in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne?
So I'm a media maker and filmmaker. I'm going to hire Arjun when I get in trouble by using my freedom of speech to say that the diaspora is much bigger than the nation state of Israel, and that I think it is offensive to say that you cannot question the actions of the current administration in Israel. To me, that's the antithesis of Judaism. It is the asking question religion. I love and honor the people who I've grown up with, who I've known for so long. And I gotta say, anti-Semitism has been on the rise for the past 15 years. That's real. We have to be free to question, and we have to be free to heal.
Thank you, Anne. Jose Luis?
Yes, of course I'll protect the rights for free speech of our students and our staff. As has been mentioned, everyone in our schools needs to feel safe. They deserve to feel safe. I am proud that we have educators that have already supported our students to have difficult conversations, and they will continue supporting our students having difficult conversations in age-appropriate ways, including in the current crisis in the Middle East. And I know that at CRLS, they've shown us that they have the capacity to provide students with the support so that the students themselves can hold those conversations together. So I trust that we're in a good place to continue having those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Alex?
I absolutely support and defend free speech. But you can't yell fire in a movie theater. So I do think that it has to be, in the context of the schools, it has to be guided, it has to be fair. Opinions have to be presented, even though the emotional fervor is runs so high and so deep, it has to be toned down when it's being discussed. And I have Jewish relatives, I have Iranian relatives, Colombian relatives, and it's very important that these discussions be held in as neutral a way. I can't express myself as I want to, but we just have to be careful.
Thank you, Alex. Judging.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Right. I do think we need to have the freedom of speech but not cultivating hatred. We can feel angry, we can feel frustrated, but not spreading the hatred to kill someone or to harm someone. But furthermore, I encourage actually to have a conversation, a dialogue from different perspectives so that it forms the first step of resolving conflict. Yes, conflict that seems very difficult impossible to resolve, but we need dialogues so that we understand each other's perspective, where we are coming from. That's the first step needed to promote world peace and harmony ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Ying. LaQueen?
Yes, my name's LaQueen, she, her. I think the latest facts, almost 50,000 Palestinians and the community have lost their lives due to the war in Gaza. Hospitals, schools, churches, even Jewish synagogues, people have lost their lives due to this war. And here in America, our schools are even at threat. There have been recent violence, school shootings, 2-3 school shootings over the past month, since, of course, as you know, the passing of, I don't mean to offend anybody, the killing of Charlie Kirk. So right now we have to be a little bit cautious of how we protect our freedom of speech. It may offend anybody, but that still does not prevent us from exercising our right. We still have to respect our community and respect those around us.
Thank you, LaQueen.
Thank you so much. Thank
Finally,
you.
Louisa.
As others have said, to me, a liberatory education is one that empowers students to understand and transform the world, not one that shields state power from criticism. The conflict happening in Palestine right now, I'm sorry, I believe it's not a religious issue, it is an imperialist issue. And I have seen educators and students be doxxed for speaking out against the genocide in Gaza. I have also faced retaliation as an educator for speaking out on progressive issues. So I really think that the school committee needs to be able to change this predatory culture against educators who speak out in the name of justice. I vow to fight for the freedom of speech, educator autonomy, and due process in our classrooms and in our schools.
Thank you, everybody. At this point, I think we've had a lot of questions and a lot of answers. We're going to give you an opportunity, 1 more minute each, to just make a closing statement. And Dwayne, you get to decide who starts.
Oh boy, I get to choose. Pass it to your left, please.
My left. Okay. All right. Thanks for having us. My name is Arjun Jayakumar. I really appreciated the questions we've had this evening. I got into this race because I think we need to elevate voices of our community in governance. And I got into this race because I think public education is a public good. I told the story before, but my father was able to come from India to Stillwater, Oklahoma in 1968 to attend a public university. And he was able to live out his dreams and my family's dreams in America because of our national commitment to offering quality education to everyone, to students of color, to students from non-traditional backgrounds, and to students from other countries. We've had a lot of questions today that touched on exactly those issues, and those issues are what drives me, what got me into this race, what brought me to public service, which is where I work now. If those issues are valuable to you, know that you'll have an ally in me as a candidate and as a member.
Thank you, Arjun. Caroline.
Thank you. I grew up under segregation, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. So I know the value of an education and what it does to transform lives and families. I'm a non-traditional educator and started, really didn't want to be a teacher, but started working in the industry with adults who didn't have their high school diploma. And there you realize the impact again of what was lost, stolen, and strayed. So I've seen adults lift up their families through basic education, and I've seen students change their lives through support from my classroom and from my activities as an educator. So I bring to you years of experience as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator, and as an advocate for social justice and for equality across the board, whether it is internationally, locally, or at home. And so I seek your number one vote, and I stand on my record as someone committed to changing our educational system for every child in Cambridge,
Caroline.
committed to third grade education and third grade reading abilities. Thank you.
Anne?
I am the parent of a dyslexic child who, at the age of 5, told me that she thought that she was a bad person because she did not know how to read. That was in New York City. We moved here in September of 2019. Kennedy Longfellow teachers who were trained in Orton-Gillingham best practices taught her how to read. I will never stop being grateful to the people who enable that kind of success. I want to serve to make sure that that kind of success is available to every single child in Cambridge, and that no child will ever be ignored in this city again.
Thank you, Anne. Jose Luis?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you to all the candidates for your answers. It's good to learn from each other. Why do I want to get elected again? That's because there's still a lot of things to do. I've been serving in the committee for 3 terms. It's almost 6 years. And I know that for some progressive voters, that it might be not a check, but an X. But I do hope that others here in the district, in the attendance, can look at my achievements and my desire to continue to improve when you decide which candidates to support. So I hope that you can consider me for your number one vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose Luis. And Alex?
I have twin daughters who are currently at CRLS. They went through the CPSD system starting at JK. We had a slight detour at CCSC, one of the community charter schools in Cambridge. I served on multiple school councils. I'm currently on the CRLS School Council. I've done a lot of volunteering. And I also worked for the Cambridge Day newspaper for 5 years covering education in Cambridge. And I chose to run to try to bring all of these experiences from different viewpoints, see if I could help. I think this has been the whole series of forums that we've all attended, I think have been very helpful in terms of just opening, I think, all of our minds to the different viewpoints and perspectives that people bring. And I think that this is a very odd way of conveying, who we are and what we believe. We all, I think, want to talk more about what we would like to do. And I hope this is just a first step in all of you learning more about all of us.
Thank you, Alex. Judging.
I came from Malaysia. I came to Cambridge 2009 from Sweden after completed my PhD studies, and I started my postdoctoral training on cancer genetics. So I am a medical scientist by training, looking at root causes and symptoms. Most importantly, I am a mother of 2 children. One is a neurodivergent, and at some point, I did homeschool my both children for a couple of years. So being exposed to diverse learners, I understand what's happening in the classroom. And with the exposure of various education systems, I've seen what works and what not. And this is something that I want to bring to the school committee, a global perspective, so that I can commit to local commitment. And with my experience as a nonprofit administrator, I know and I understand the perspective of various stakeholders. And this is something I want to bring in. And most importantly, I think we are in the wrong direction for education, the standardized test and standardized curriculum, the one size fits all. I want to bring this to make everyone aware. Thank you.
LaQueen.
Hi, yes, my name's LaQueen Battle, she, her. Thank you to the audience, CPEC, and who's watching the board for your time to meet with us today. I stand before everyone and here on the platform as a mother, as a friend, and as a community member. I do have my own background. I have a disability. I have an education, a great education from Purdue University, as well as 5 certificates from Harvard Medical School. But still, that does not separate me from my own weaknesses, as well as a lot of people have weaknesses just to survive. And we don't want to put, as Ms. Caroline said, we don't want to burden the future of our children with the inability in proper decision making. So I come before you as a community to help bring resources and guidance to the children here at CPSD. And hopefully you will agree with me here as to vote as number 1 for your school committee member. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you all.
Thank you, LaQueen. And Louisa?
Hi. I decided to run because of the dysfunctional experience that I had at the Fletcher Maynard Academy, and also because I was a member of the Solidarity Squad and saw there a movement of educators and parents to change how the school committee and how our schools function. I believe that educators, parents, and students should be able to evaluate administrators. And I'll bring my experience as an organizer to the school committee. To be able to advocate for our students. I believe students need to be able to be taught to their strengths, and that the services that we provide to our schools need to be broadened to reflect those student needs. And yeah, we need to fully fund our schools, and that includes paying educators a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jess. I come to this primarily as a parent to 2 upper school kids who I have been very involved in the community for a long time in various ways. And I like to think of community as a verb, and that's a concept that has guided me. And I just want to say that if I'm elected, you will get a school committee member who works hard, and I will also bring humility to the school committee. I'm not an education policy expert, and I won't pretend to be one. But as an epidemiologist, I have plenty of experience using data to answer questions and target interventions. And also, I feel strongly that school is about more than academic achievement. My campaign has been a campaign that focuses on process, specifically the processes through which the school committee works. And that is that I would like to see a school committee that is more accessible, accountable, responsive, and transparent. And to that end, I would like to say that perhaps the current school committee members might consider delaying the superintendent vote for the day after the next regular meeting to allow for public comment instead of the day before the next regular meeting.
Thank you. You timed it right.
I'm Caitlin Doobie, and I am a proud progressive educator. I was a classroom teacher for many years, an administrator, and I continue to work in education by designing democratic schools. And I'm excited to be in this race because I do want to bring that experience and that calling towards education as a mode for systems change to the city. There are so many engaged and amazing community members here. We have incredibly dedicated educators, and we have families and students who truly care. I think that one of the things that brings me to this race is that I know that schools are the primary site of socialization, and that we can harness that power for social change. Social change isn't gonna happen on an MCAS, but it is gonna happen when educators are supported, families are included, and students are centered.
Thank you.
Lily Havstead, thanks all of you for being here tonight and again for hosting. I just want to close out by saying that I think that our public schools are a strong reflection of the wellness of our democracy, and our democracy is not well. And our schools have incredible bright spots, so many, and I regret that we haven't talked about that a bit more, because I think that's part of what we need to do to lift up our educators, our students, and our families. But the fact is that we are not serving all of our students equitably, and the closure of KALO could not have made that more clear. And we are now on the cusp of making a decision about a new superintendent hire after already a failed search. Failed searches happen. They happen in higher education all the time. As a college professor over 10 years, sometimes you need to admit failure and start over. And I think that's where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am David Weinstein. I ask for your #1 vote to re-elect me to build on what I've accomplished together with the community. First, I want to thank CPEC for hosting, moderators Dwayne and Kathy, all of you, and everyone here. Running for school committee is a great way to meet some amazing Cambridgians. It's a time-consuming way, but it's a really great way. I've lived in Cambridge for 24 years, proud parent of an 8th grader and a 2025 CRLS graduate. My commitment to education begins with my own public school experience, where I did well, loved my teachers, made lifelong friends, but could see disparities of opportunity in my diverse hometown. So I became a teacher and a teacher union member, taught in public, elementary, and high schools, spent a career in K-12 and college education. I've developed a 50-state civic education program that's based at Brandeis University, and I know how to connect innovations and ideals with classroom and community realities. We have so much in Cambridge. We do so much so well, yet some children still fall through the cracks. Disparities persist. So my service on the school committee has been dedicated to solving this contradiction. We must close racial, gender, and economic opportunity gaps so all of our children have the tools and support they need to reach their full potential, thrive in the classroom and in
Thank
life.
you. Okay, so with that, I just want to say we're going to close up the forum right now, but before that, I'd just like to say thank each and every one of you candidates for coming today. I like what you said. It was really impressive. I mean, I've been to the schools you're talking about, so my thing is, please don't give up the fight. Look at some of the old records that they had back in the 70s and the 80s. That might give you some insight of how things were run. So I'm not saying use them, but it might give you some insight. But thank you for your time. And the people in the audience, don't leave. And I hope the candidates will spend time with you so they can answer some of your questions. So with that, I just would, Go ahead.
He was going to dismiss you. I wanted to just add a bit of clarification about how we vote in Cambridge. If you noticed, some people said, I'm asking for your #1 vote. Cambridge is getting less unusual around using ranked choice voting, but we've been using it for a very long time. It's under our system. You only need to vote for people who you support. And I think that's a blessing because we've listened to a lot of really wonderful people here, and if you're going, oh my God, I don't know who to vote for, you actually get to vote for all of them. The challenging part is that you have to rank your vote by #1, your first choice, second choice, and so on. But you do not have to vote for people that you do not want to see on the school committee. You need to vote for people who you do want to see on the school committee. So it's really important to rank your vote and fill in your ballot in the proper way. I just also wanted to announce that there will also be a city council candidate forum that's scheduled this Tuesday at September 30th at 6 p.m. at the CRLS cafeteria, and we would love to see you there. There are flyers available outside, and you can register on our website, so please share it widely with your friends and networks. Again, echoing Dwayne, it was lovely to work with Dwayne and all of you. This is an amazing group of people, and we thank you for your time and your commitment. And there is food in the lobby that you should help yourselves to, and please vote on November 4th. Thank you.